Awesome. So thank you so much for joining with the president of Stillman Translation in this edition of What's Up in Global Law. And there's a lot going on out there. Wow. But we think we've captured a serious touch point with our theme of the communication being in the translation. So let me get us started as we move through the process. I'm going to actually ask for introductions first, and I'm going to ask Carolina to introduce herself because her record is so resplendent. I can't do it justice. So, Carolina, would you mind introducing yourself?
Thank you, Chris. Okay, so my name is Carolina. I am the president at Stillman. We have three lines of productions. It's Stillman Translations, our oldest line of production. We started as a traditional agency, as a traditional language service provider. And then we open up a new line of business for digital marketing and a third line of business for applied technology into the communications. So we can serve better our clients from the knowledge of the processes that we already have in multicultural communication. So we want to apply in internal and external communication as well. So that's basically me. I'm also part of the advisory board here in Barcelona, where I live now, but I'm originally from Córdoba, Argentina. And I'm very proud of acting as a bridge between Córdoba and Spain because there are a lot of potential opportunities between one and the other country.
Well, Carolina, thank you so much for that. And I think
Pleasure.
that share exemplifies the opportunity and kind of our reason for doing this show. I'm Chris Bennett. My sister describes me as a professional student, and I do resemble that remark. And my partner describes me more as like a word nerd. And the reason that matters is because definitions and translations are essential to what I do as a practicing attorney part-time, but also full-time as the CEO of a legal tech intellectual property startup called IP Rights Raw. And the reason we do this work is because we're parts of the Global Chamber. I am also a member of the advisory committee. And this work is not intended to provide legal advice. So we will not be doing that today. That's for attorney-client privilege relationships. But what we will be doing is making you aware that organizations like Stillman, my organizations, and others in the Global Chamber are there for you as community to which you can reach out, as well as to colleagues who can support you when the situation makes sense. And that is a priceless commodity today in this world of change and flexibility. Now, let's go forward building on this whole introduction and where the word nerd meets the translation guru uh, and talk about the warm up for the show. And as you might recollect, our model is we have a specific goal. We're going to talk about the intersection of translation, of technology and global trade and the law. But we like to do that kind of scintillated, if you will, with AI. So we went in today and we asked five leading artificial intelligence model, what's the most important development in the world today? The outputs on the screen, I'm going to summarize, and I'm going to do two things. A, if you have a comment or question now or as we go forward, put it in the chat because we want to actually engage that. But I'm also going to ask Carolina to determine if she agrees with what these large language models says, either for part of it or all of it, and how she thinks that might relate to what they're doing at Stillman. So we had OpenAI indicate that it's global security risk, especially from the United States, Israel, and Iran war. Anthropic agreed with that, which is rare because oftentimes these LLMs don't agree to the same prompt. The third option was perplexity, very long, detailed response, which essentially covers the spectrum of economics, geopolitics, war, and information. And it emphasizes the impact of artificial intelligence as a transformative technology. Meta was stumped. It couldn't answer, which I found to be fascinating to consider how much money they invested in it. It said, I can't figure it out at this level. I need more help. And
Okay.
last but not least, Gemini from Google said, hey, it's the convergence of geopolitics and biotech, which is unique. So let's pause. Audience, if you have any thoughts or questions or comments, put them in the chat, please. Carolina,
Hmm.
with any or all of these AIs on most important development today,
I'm kind of surprised about Gemini answer, aren't you? It's kind of
it's out of
surprising.
nowhere, yes. But
Totally. And I'm kind of surprised about Meta answer too. It's like no opinion here.
what it kept saying was, I need more guidance. It said, there's just too much.
Mm,
So I need you to help me be more specific. And we do the prompts across
hmm.
the board because we want to see how the different AIs respond. And I think for our audience, that shows you that all artificial intelligence products are not the same. They have programmer biases built into them and other biases built in. And as a wise consumer, it's best to keep those in mind as you try to use these products and actually incorporate them into your business.
Totally. So, well, yes, I agree with OpenAI, with Anthropic, with Perplexity. I think that the most important development right now it's Middle East war, right? And we were talking about, well, with you yesterday that communication is paramount in not only in this kind of conflicts, but in everyday tasks that we do. So yeah, that is.
Well, thank you for that. And I will say that I can see how both Anthropic and OpenAI suggested the war in the Middle East. Um, and for me, it actually goes right to the heart of this topic of the communication is in the translation. Uh, I understand that Pakistan and other countries are intermediaries that are passing messages between the United States and Iran.
Yeah.
Where, the United States is claiming there is some negotiations, and Iran is saying that it's not. And I think that is an example. What is it to negotiate? Is it really for the two parties to communicate directly, or is it to, in fact, work through an intermediary? Is it all count the same? And
Yeah.
those importances matter, whether you're talking about a state actor agreement, a business
Hmm.
agreement, or even a military engagement, where in the United States we have rules of engagement, which define what you theoretically can and cannot do as a matter of law.
Yes.
So
Yes,
the
there is another layer there that is the culture, right? Because it's not only the translation you needed to make the messages, the interpreters. I mean, should be arbitrators there, should be the middleman, and it's not easy. Also, not only on the law but on the coaching point of view, to be the middle person there. Sending and receiving the messages. So the job of these people is super important because they have to act, of course, with a lot of ethic paramounts and everything, but having to adapt the message so it's culturally um, precise. It's also a great job to be done.
Thank you for that. That's well said. So I can imagine the complexity where culturally America may say one thing, Pakistan absorbs that, and then I don't know if they're passing it through directly to Iran or if they're paraphrasing. And then Iran receives that message and applies their own cultural sensitivities to it. And I just think those are tremendous examples of how what Stillman does, and also what the word nerds like yours truly do. Like, what's the definition and what do you mean by that? Matter in politics and also in business. So, thank you for that share. And in building on our show's theme, we said let's dig a little deeper. So we asked these AIs, what's the most important thing happening in the world today? And they gave us some responses. So we said, hey, same prompt, same five large language models. What are the top 10 developments in the world? Give us five for US and for five for the rest of the world. Uh, I went in and just picked what they responded for the US for brevity. If anyone's interested, we actually have the record, and as an addendum, we can send you what were the detailed responses. Here's how they replied to that prompt of what are the top things in the world, top 10. Claude said it's the DHS shutdown in American airports. Now, I have to admit, uh, even for America, that's a pretty microcosm thing. So that must mean there's a hypersensitivity to air travel in their model. Perplexity said, no, 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 it's actually AI and the automation throughout the entire US economy. That's interesting because they had a similar view around the world. Gemini agreed with Claude. Gemini said, hey, it's the shutdown with the airports and these air traffic controllers, and they're not getting paid and those kind of things. And then OpenAI found it was the Israel-Iran conflict involving the United States. And Meta continued to be befuddled by indicating it was just too much and it needed some help. So anything in that rating by those AIs strike a chord with you, Carolina?
Hmm. Um, I mean, there is a clear message about the point of view for me. For me, I mean, I won't mess up with the content itself, but a step backwards, right? So it's like, okay, we are going to see this field, we're going to observe this field, and according to the questions that you ask, some things are going to be highlighted and some others won't. For example, if you ask the same question here in Spain, the answers will be super different. Um, my point is we need to ask the right questions, right? To get the right input. And that with AI tends to be, okay, AI knows everything and I'm going to blindly believe what AI is saying. But with this experiment that you're running, it's interesting because even AI do not have only one answer, right?
Well, that's well said. In fact, we've been doing this show for over a year, and only once in our entire existence have the AIs agreed. And I think if folks sit with that for a moment, that will help them to put it in context that you need humans in the loop to humanize and also to actually make sense of the AI results. And then you also need to be careful in what you believe and how much value you place in the AI responses. And
Yes.
this, yeah, and this will become even more important if you have significant money, lives, or other resources at play.
Yes, human in the loops for communication and for translation and for multicultural communication, it's super important. But there is certain responsibility of us as information consumers
Mhm.
to really ask the right questions, let's say, or to ask as many questions as we need to ask to get the right information, right?
Yes. Well said. Well said. There is a shared responsibility in this.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like with the agreements with Amazon, for those of you who use Amazon's cloud computing services, they have a shared responsibility as far as cybersecurity is concerned. So the
Mm-hmm.
world is moving that direction. All right, so now we've kind of gotten warmed up a little bit. These AIs are talking about things that matter as far as definitions, translations. And so when you reach an agreement with someone, a specific word may mean a different thing to that party. And it's important to actually for the parties to clearly communicate the definition so they can make informed decisions and reach agreements. And a lot of that, if you're dealing with multiple languages, can depend on the translation. And from my living in Miami, Florida for a couple of years, and walking into different places in Miami where the proprietors didn't speak English. So I had to go and learn to speak Spanish. I went to took a class at the University of Miami. Um, the translations do matter, and being able to understand the other party is essential. And that gets us to a transition point. These are all artificial intelligence, large language models, which deal with very general inquiries and lots of data and rules. For IP rights for all, we have a smaller version of that. In that lower right-hand corner of the screen, the image you see, our avatar is called Tilly. Tilly is an LLM instance that only does one thing. Tilly talks about intellectual property rights. So if you are interested in using innovation and creativity and invention to create economic opportunity and to pursue intellectual property, reach out to us because we'd like to have Tilly see about working with you to pursue your aspirations. And she's an example of how you can be very specialized in what you do. So having jumped off from 5 LLMs from major providers to a little instance of our Tilly to help with IP, we're now going to step back and ask for a subject matter expert for Carolina to share with us a bit more about the Stillman translation story and some of the different business areas that she mentioned. So quick, Carolina, over to you. And I'm happy to
Okay.
advance the slides if you, at your request.
Sure. Okay, thank you, Chris. So can you go to the first one? Yeah. So there. Well, we are developing actually in our third line of business, as I was telling you earlier, these or trying to address this challenge that it's to change the perception that we only need translations, just single translations to complete an integral companion in the processes that the client is developing or the client has in place. So for the legal industry specifically, we are facing a shift, right? And the shift is reshaping the legal workflows. So these workflows that has been put in place for many, many years right now, and due to the technology advancement and everything, are in question now. Are these processes really working? Are there any process on our side to really comply with what the clients are really asking for? Are these processes transparent? Can we follow up them, etc., etc.? So what, oh, that's for me. That's a question for me.
That's what I'm putting in the chat for
Yes.
later.
Ah,
I'm a
okay, for
word nerd.
later.
I'm a word nerd. Of course, I would ask about a definition.
Okay, okay. So we are now in this middle land, let's say, that we need to address, and companies like Stillman are are really here to support our clients in doing the transition between one model and the other one. The same happens with your company, Chris. I can tell. Can we go to the next slide, please? So communication has become an operational infrastructure. So we provide the integrated infrastructure. So the message, and this is really the definition of translation, can get to from the speaker to the audience. Let's say it's only one person or several person. And in the legal space, this message is particularly important because it should keep the intent, the accuracy, and the legal weight. And it should comply with all these variables. So organizations today operate across multiple languages, markets, and systems. This is not only for legal, but many, many companies in different industries, in different spaces, work globally. And I think that it was, of course, increased during the lockdown. But then all of us adapt it and have, in one sense or in the other, global reach. And then communication flows are no longer isolated. That's why those are flows. They are continuous and interconnected. And this is a requirement from the user's point of view. We as users want to have the information right on our fingertips all the time. So this is why the processes designed by legal companies, but also by every company, should be a strategic way to reach the audience, and the audience can consume the information when they are in need of that information, right? And the challenge is no longer sending information, but managing how it moves. The information is there, and we help the client or our prospects, let's say, to put together a system so we can together manage the information to get to the audience and to make it available. This is the movement from the private section, let's say, to the privacy of the company to reach whatever. If they have to reach a website, for example, because it's an article that should be published in 5 different languages, okay, we can do it. If that it's confidential information and should reach only one person involved in the case that it's being processed, okay, we can do that. So we can design this infrastructure that we can put in place so with minimum disruption, let's say, with trying not to get so very involved in the basement processes of the client, so we don't provoke any kind of major disruption, but we want to integrate into those processes and think together if those processes are really working or they need a little bit of improvement. So that's why we do not develop the technology, but what we do is to integrate. So we can build certain little tricks there to really provide the service. Can we move to the next one?
Yes.
So here we are in the legal dilemma, let's say, to be or not to be. So we're currently, and we were discussing this yesterday, and it was super interesting. It got my attention very much because we are currently in a middle moment, in a high tension transition where two distinct models of legal operations are clashing. And we were talking about an old model, let's say, served by senior lawyers, that it has been working through all these years, and a new model, these junior lawyers that are very used to use technology for their everyday life, and they are trying to implement these everyday technology to their work. But while 31% of the lawyers' personnel use AI for work, only 21%, sorry, of their firms have officially implemented it. And we see here that there is a barrier. And maybe what it's producing this gap between the two percentages is the management of the offices, or maybe it's really, I don't know how to implement this because it's too much, because I'm a lawyer or I'm a subject matter specialist in my own field. So I don't have to have that knowledge. That's why companies like ours exist, right? More than half of corporate legal terms now state that they want their outside law firms to be using AI to increase efficiency. So again, back to let's ask the correct questions. If we decide as a company to implement AI, we really need to know why we are doing this. Is this to replace, for example, communications? Is this to replace a person? Is this to replace a process? Is this to do it faster? What's the ultimate goal, let's say? With that in mind and clear, we can move forward and implement the different solutions and design personalized solution for that specific company or firm. Because there are certain things that cannot be done. Although it seems like AI can do everything today, well, they can't cook yet, let's say. Okay, let's move to the next one.
I'll do that, and if I may just share a couple of relevant points.
Sure.
One is at least once a week, roughly, I'm participating in meetings or in events that involve how the practice of law should address artificial intelligence. And to add to the complexity, many of the legal practice regulators, in the case of Washington, D.C., it's the District of Columbia Bar, has specific rules. And they're rolling out rules that require you to disclose to your clients in fee agreements, which are best practice for attorneys, that you're using artificial intelligence and to provide sufficient information that you're using it safely in full compliance. We're seeing that in a number of major states, and I know that Texas, California, and DC, I personally know that they have those kind of requirements. And we rolled that out in our fee agreements recently. And I would suspect that that's going to come from most of the bar practice organizations, across the United States. And there are similar efforts around the world in other jurisdictions like the European Union.
Mhm.
So, and that goes to your point of disclosing and then working with the client or the customer to determine how do you actually use it responsibly and what are the expectations for that use? Because it could affect your billing rates if you're a law firm. So you want to be very clear on the impact it's going to have on the relationship.
Totally. Nevertheless, we need to move forward
Yes.
in the sense of it's like when the car was invented, right? There were
Mhm.
not streets. There were not rules about how that the car has to stop in the corner, how the pedestrian should cross the street, etc., etc. But the car was already there, and the people wanted to use it. So it's like, okay, it's like the dilemma of the chicken or the egg, right? Or to be or not to be. It's we need to start using this, but with our criteria of human beings, of experts in the matters that matter the most, that it's confidentiality, laws, being legal compliant, etc. In different legal spaces, of course, move into secure spaces in different ways. So it's okay, we're going to start using this technology, let's call it the car, and we're going to try to drive without killing anyone in the street, etc., etc., being aware of that there is a pedestrian, that there is a dog there, that it might not be very useful to cross a garden in a house, etc., etc. So it could be at this moment, at this very middle time, let's say, we need to use our basic criteria to say this is right and this is wrong to choose wisely
Yes.
and, until the rules come.
Yes.
So the global communication challenge, it's not only for legal but for all. But this current moment is defined by increasing complexity in cross-border and multilingual operations. We are in touch every day with different cultures and with different people that we all speak in English because it's our language of contact, right? But we are not even native in English, and well, we use it, and sometimes we commit mistakes and so on and so on. So this multilingual world that we live right now, it's a global world, and I have the feeling that multicultural is so important, but that we need to protect those differences rather than erase those differences. Growing pressure for efficiency, speed, and control. Of course, it's a very fast-paced world right now. And the rapid introduction of new technologies into established environments. So this is, okay, we need to adopt. Again, let's go back to ask the right questions on how this is going to impact in our operations or on the delivery of our services. Yeah, so the risk of doing nothing today, okay, we can choose this. I mean, it's an option. We can, let's do nothing. But there are certain challenges there or really risks. For example, the inconsistency in the terminology. This is very important that we were talking about the war state. Uh, Inconsistency in terminology in this scenario could lead to further life losses, for example. We really need to be very careful while we do regular translations, even to maintain the terminology consistent. Then operational bottlenecks. Maybe we are not able to deliver if we don't have the right on time, I mean, if we don't have the right processes in place. Then hidden and increasing costs. Why a lawyer in a buffet will be responsible for doing the translations if there is a company doing those translations, or why it's this person that it's a subject matter expert in, for example, arbitration or penal law on whatever kind of subject, having to do a work that it could be guessed, but not really put there the operations and be aware of all the risks that this brings together. And again, if these people is focused on tasks that are not their primary tasks, then the loss of competitiveness comes hand in hand with this lack of focus in the main task. So what we need to focus now it's on time. So how are we going to distribute the time? And of course, the time is money. So how are we going to invest that time/money into these new processes?
Yes. Thank you for that.
So this is our solution and our integrated solution. So it can look simple, but it's not. It can look simple, but every box there, every step on that process has its complexity, and that's why we use our 15-year-old collected knowledge to do this, as it seems very simple, but in fact it's not. So this is a very simple way of putting or disclosing our services. So we have a source, then we do a content extraction, then we do the Stillman solutions magic there in the green box, and then we create the output in a different language, maybe in the same language but in a different culture, and then we put it into the target space. It could be a website, it could be a newsletter, it could be an email, it could be whatever the target is it. Can we move one more?
Sure.
So,
If I may ask very
yeah.
briefly, Carolina. Uh, so one of the words that I appreciated learning was, I think it's chistosa, chistoso. I was just I understood it was meant you're joking or you're kidding, but I could see in context that could be misconstrued. So someone could be they might get the wrong conclusion. So when someone may say, "Oh, chistoso," "Are you chistoso?" "Tú es chistoso." How does Stillman address something like that where the context can really matter on the interpretation of the word without
Well,
divulging
that's
secret sauce?
yeah, totally. Well, that's one of the limits of the AI, right? It's humor. Humor, it's totally culture. Well, here is Yuka connected, right? In the Hi Yuki. So I am actually teaching her Argentinian Spanish. So yes. So we have a lot of sayings in Argentina that are super funny for Yuka, that she is originally Japanese, we all know that, but she's living here in Spain and she knows Spanish, the Spain Spanish, and some of those doesn't make any sense for her. So for me, it's an experiment. Every time I share a saying with her, it's like, okay, let's do this experiment. And for me, it's super funny, and for her, it's kind of confusing. But it's okay. So this next slide, it's very similar to the previous one, but if you check, we have changed the arrows for little links there. That means that we have the ability to automate every step in our process. This automation leads us to a seamless integration with the client platforms, systems, infrastructure, digitalization of their choice. This is the way that we can even do it partially, or we can do it totally in according to the client's need. So we can do an end-to-end automated and human supervised language workflow, and everything should flow very seamless. And well, this is our traditional workflow. This is let's say, if we double click on the green box for Stillman Solutions, we would get all these process here, that it's our invisible added value. That it's, well, first of all, we set up the client in our database, and we create certain basic material, and then we do every time a new file is needed, or a new publication is done or launched, or whatever the source material is, we run this process, like first the client request, then the confirmation of the PMs and the PM selection, and then the project creation, the project assignment, the localization of the project, the revision, the QA check, the project delivery, the client information. I'm going very fast here because this is day-to-day activities for us. And if a person that is not used to these kind of processes needs to think step by step and move very in an uncomfortable way, let's say, in this communication process, it would lead the final product to low quality product. And I'm not talking only about language quality. I personally understand quality in three different ways. So the first one is communication. So it's basic, and not only about the communication that we are talking right now, but the agreements that we do as a client and provider, right? So the first one is communication. The second one, of course, is linguistic quality. And we really need to provide that kind of quality on the basic level, I mean, on being accurate in source and target and everything. And the third one is processes. This process, it's revised every time for every client. Is this process working? Does the client really need this? Does the client need human in the loop or not? According to what material? Let's choose the scenario for this specific material. Let's choose the tools for this specific material, etc. So the quality understood in three different ways are really materialized, let's say, here in the processes, so we can deliver every time high quality, well, top quality, actually.
Okay.
Let's move
Thank you
with
for
it.
that. And we have about 6 minutes left, so we're gonna let's help you move through the rest of the presentation, and then we can sum it
I'm
up for
a,
the audience.
I'm about to finish.
Okay.
So this is why, or the reason that every person would have to approach us, because we have a multi-regional security and compliance infrastructure. We have more than 15 years of experience in this multicultural world. Then we can scale in different languages for different scenarios of compliance. And we have customized integrations tailored to the client's and client needs. And that is all.
Wow. Uh, Carolina, thank you so much. As you went through your presentation, I thought of some merger and acquisition transactions on which I worked, and just the level of detail to which the documents go. And I think
Oh.
one that we did was hundreds of pages, a couple hundred pages, and it was for like a 40, $50 million transaction. Um, if you're going to do something of that magnitude, or larger or smaller, the precision that someone might need for what your organization does would be essential. I think
Mm.
there are probably some folks out there trying to do it by getting by with an AI, which, as our research has shown, that's a level of imprecision that wouldn't be wise. So Thank you for
Totally.
sharing.
If the client is willing to do that kind of investment, invest a little bit more into be really sure what you are signing about.
Well, thank you so much. And now, as we transition, I'm going to go to hot mic moments, and I have one for bias because I think it really summarizes the importance of Carolina's share about translations and the communication being in the translation. Um, Recently, you might have heard about a couple of events involving the AI Anthropic, in which the company determined that it would work with the U.S. Department of War, but it had a couple of conditions. One condition is they did not want their product to be used for mass surveillance of American citizens. The second was they didn't want their product to be used in autonomous killings by different systems which have that ability. And so the response from the Department of War was to designate the company as a supply chain risk and attempt to remove them from being in the supply chain for government contracts. Don't know how that's going to work out. That's above my pay grade. But I will simply say that this technology has a lot of capabilities, but just like Anthropic doesn't want its capabilities to be used for systems deciding who is a threat and then terminating them. I think it is very important for us to be diligent in both using the technology and
Yeah.
engaging subject matter humans in the loop, like Stillman, like Operates for All, like the Global Chamber, and the many people and organizations to add that layer of diligence that helps us make wise decisions as a society. So apologize for speechifying for a moment, but to me, that was so important that they're saying we don't want you to use our intelligence to harm people inappropriately, extrajudicially. It
Yeah.
was a hot mic moment for me.
Well said, Chris. I only have to add one reflection here, that it's not new actually, but the AI it's a tool, and you said a word that it's key, that it's decide. So uh, we had a knife before the AI came into our lives, and we can use knives to cook a delicious meal or to kill somebody, and it's actually that way of using. I mean, it depends on the user. And here, ethics, personal ethics, professional ethics are being questioned because of what are we doing with that tool.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. I totally agree. So everyone be on alert for those kind of situations as we implement this technology. From a next step perspective, in fact, our next show will be on how the law intersects with war. Not only the conduct of it, which is rules of engagements by the combatants, but also for the vendors and the citizens and the other civilians who are somehow caught up in those situations. So I think that'll be a very exciting show on the intersection of law, conflict, and global matters. So with that said, let's hand it to Carolina for a closing statement, and then we'll adjourn and let everyone get on with their communities. I mean, their weekend. So Carolina.
Okay. Well, Chris, first of all, thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure to reflect with you about all communications matters. And for me, the takeaway of all this journey, it's let's try to protect our cultures, because our cultures and our differences make what we really are part of our personality, and it's all about that. So that is. Thank you very much.
Carolina, thank you so much. And to the audience, remember Global Chamber is there for you as a community and constituency like Carolina, TIL, IP Rights for All, Mila, and the others. Have a great weekend, and we look forward to connecting with you in the next show. Take care now. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.